Welcome to my guide for consumables. I'm the Black Knight, and in this video I want to talk about consumables. In my opinion, people don't use these consumables on a regular basis, and if you want to optimize your gameplay, you really should start using them on a regular basis. They are very helpful and diverse. Let's start with the bowlers. So the bowlers are pretty helpful if you know which boss you're gonna face. Pick up this specific bowler to help out in a fight. For example, the poison bowler is pretty helpful in the moth and scorpion fight, and in a few days we will have the new hard mode boss. It will be the poisonous moth and the scorpion. And since some players still don't know that they have to hit their teammates in order to remove the parasite, because the poison moth can do poisonous mist attack, and if you get poisoned you will suffer, you will get a parasite, and the parasite can burst if the scorpion roars, and this will deal good amount of damage and is pretty dangerous. So in multiplayer, if your teammates don't know how to remove these parasites, it can be very frustrating. However, by using a poison bowler, you can remove the poison effect and therefore stay safe. And especially on solo play, where you can't really remove outside ultimate the parasite, they are very helpful. The poison bowlers, if you eat them, you will increase your resistances permanently for the rest of the expedition. So it is a good idea to eat specific bowlers to increase your resistances. For example, the blood bowler is pretty helpful against Adele, Gaping Jaw, since his grab attack can inflict blood loss, and by eating bowlers in the expedition on the map when you fight them, can increase your resistances, and therefore you won't suffer blood loss anymore. However, in a hard mode, Gaping Jaw, in the third phase, his grab attack is longer and stronger, so you need more bowlers there to stay safe. However, they are pretty helpful, and you should keep an eye out of them. Next one I want to talk about are the starlight charts. They are very helpful as well. However, I would rate them overall a little bit lower, since not every character wants to use them, mostly the spellcaster characters. For Revenant, they are super useful. They can be super helpful and useful for Duchess as well, and even the Recluse. However, for the Recluse, since Recluse can recover FP on her own, it doesn't have so much value. There is a little tip. Sometimes the Recluse want to mix a specific magic cocktail, and if you're low on FP, you can't cast any spells, and if you want to recover FP with a magic cocktail ability thingy, you may ending up with the wrong cocktail. So using a starlight chart to still be able to cast spells and mix the right cocktail can be pretty helpful, even with the Recluse. Yeah. They simply recover some FP. It's straightforward. For spellcasters, you should stack them for the final boss, so you can stay on range, be safe, and do good DPS with spells. Usually the DPS with spells are pretty good, and therefore by stacking a lot of charts you will stay safer for longer. or do insane amount of damage for longer DPS, right? Just straightforward. The next one are the pickle foods. The golden one especially is pretty useful in my opinion, especially early on, since you can snowball your run with it. The golden foot will increase your rune acquisition. So if you're lucky and find some of them early on, please pick them up and use them. You will increase your runes. With more runes, you will be more powerful. With more power, you can defeat more bosses faster. Therefore, you get even more runes and more power, so you can snowball it out of control, right? It's pretty strong. I pick them up every time I see them. Sometimes I forget to use them, don't forget to use them. They're very, very useful. The silver ones, in my opinion, are much worse, since I never use them. However, if you use them, you can increase the chances of getting good loot, getting good weapons, passives, maybe even, right? However, I don't want to rely on luck, and they are still very RNG dependent. Yeah, you can use them and be lucky, but you can use them and not be lucky, and now you waste maybe some time, right? Or fill a useful slot. So they can be good. If you want to use them, use them. I recommend it, but yeah, they are not as good as the golden ones. Next consumables I want to talk about is the stamina one. The stamina one is very powerful, especially early on. In the end game, the value gets reduced by a little bit. Hear me out. The stamina recover, even for spellcaster, is very, very useful, because early on the spellcaster will use more stamina than FP for their spells. So having faster stamina recover will increase your DPS by quite a bit. And with Wilder and Rider, they like to use big weapons, and you will deplete your stamina rapidly early on, especially early on. And by using a dog neck, you will increase your DPS as well by having stamina recover. They are pretty useful. I sometimes leave them on the ground. It depends on some things, like if I have a lot of other stuff, I don't want to pick them up, or later in the game I don't want to pick them up as well, since other stuff like exalted flesh are much stronger. And later on your stamina is much higher, and therefore you don't really suffer due to no stamina thingy. Straightforward as well, I would say. Useful for every single character, especially early on. Later on the value is a little bit lower. I want to talk about these two. In my opinion, they are pretty helpful for newer players, since you will get some physical damage reduction with this, which is pretty helpful overall if you fight some bosses, especially Night Lords. Mostly have, but they have a lot of physical attacks, so it can be pretty helpful to negate some damage, especially if you're unlucky and couldn't find any good damage negation passives on your spare weapons. They can be pretty helpful, and yeah, I wouldn't stack them and save them up for the last fight. I use them for every single boss if I find them to. So if you use them every time, you will be more sturdy. You won't use as much health pots, health flasks with this consumable, and by using this all the time, you free up some space again for the better ones. Pretty straightforward, especially with characters who has little defenses like Duchess, Iron Isle, Recluse, and Revenant. It can be pretty helpful. However, if you want to optimize your gameplay, you should learn how to dodge correctly right on every time. And therefore, the better you get, the less value this item has, in my opinion. But it's still pretty okay. The other one does the same, just a little bit less. Right, this is boost physical damage negation, and this is greatly boost physical damage negation. Okay, let's talk about a very powerful one. This is extremely powerful, and if you don't pick them up and want to improve your gameplay, I will call you noob. I'm sorry, they're just strong. The Exalted Flash increases your damage by 20%. It is huge buff, and it does stacks with other buffs, with body buffs and weapon buffs. It is so freaking powerful, and you should pick them up every time. You should buy them from merchants and the last vending machine. They are extremely strong and very helpful to snowball your run. Like I said, the more damage you have, the faster you can defeat the bosses, more runes, more power, faster boss kills, and so on. So you can snowball by using 20% damage buff just like this. It's very, very, very strong. Keep in mind, the value of this item is lower in early game because this buff is a percentage buff and your damage early on isn't that high. So early on, flat damage increases like greases are stronger than this Flash, Exalted Flash. Right now, without any weapon buffs, my damage with Wilder's Greatsword is 58. Consume Exalted Flash, and now it's 69. 11 flat damage, right? But by using a grease, you will get 20 or more, depends on your relics, right? Flat elemental damage. Split damage is a little bit weaker, but still a more powerful buff, especially early on. In the end game, Exalted Flash's value is extremely good, and if you want a fast and easy final boss, you can save them up for the last fight. However, I like to use them for field bosses, midfield bosses, endgame field bosses, or even night bosses to just kill them faster and try to snowball my run, right? Since before the final boss at the vending machine, you can always buy 2 of them, so it's not a problem to use them throughout the expedition. They are pretty strong. Please use them every time, pick them up every time. They are extremely useful. 20% is huge. Huge. Okay, let's talk about this one. Oh my god, this is straight up SS plus tier. The strongest consumable in the whole game, in my opinion. And I never see people buying and using this. This is a huge mistake if you want to optimize your gameplay. If you want to optimize your gameplay and you don't use this item, I will call you noob. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but they are extremely strong. So what do they do? You use them It's AoE, it's for your whole team. The whole team, and you obviously, will get a damage buff of 10% and a bubble. This bubble will protect you once from incoming damage. You will reduce incoming damage once by 90%. So this item is extremely powerful and has a lot of value because in multiplayer it is so strong. You can buff your teammates, 3 people. This means 3 times 10% damage increase and a bubble which can protect you against incoming damage once. It can be very helpful. All of us, I believe, found themselves in a position where we fought a boss like a black gargoyle, bell-bearing hunter, a draconic tree sentinel, under-leveled. This can be very dangerous. As you know, probably they will one-hit under-leveled characters. So by using this, you won't be one-hit or one-shot. It's very helpful to try and defeat some strong bosses early on to maybe snowball your run. However, they are useful throughout the expedition. However, I would save them up for the final fight, since a lot of people sometimes, especially if you play with randoms like me, sometimes they can't dodge enemy attacks, and by buffing them with the aromatic perfume here, it is super strong, reducing the incoming damage once by 90%. It's strong, and buffing damage by 10% is super strong. And look at this. Wait a second. Okay, my damage 58. I'm gonna use this. This is 10% damage buff. 64. Now we're gonna use Exalted Flesh. Bam! It stacks, my guys. It does stack. So it can buff your weapon or your damage by a lot. Using these two will increase your damage by almost 30%, more or less, right? It's huge. It's huge. Combine this with relics like attack power permanently increase for each Evergirl prisoner or something else. You will do insane amount of damage. So therefore, please use them. Okay, where to find them? Finding them is very hard. Rare treasure on the map sometimes contain 1 or maybe 2 of them. However, every time you are near a merchant, please check out his stock, because he can sell 2 of them, and if he sells 2 of them, please buy them. 1 of this perfume bubble just costs 4k runes, so 2 of them obviously will cost 8k, and it is more than worth it. 8k is nothing. I will always buy them and use them. They are incredible helpful. Another tip was this. Sometimes Night Lords uses a specific attack where he targets one specific enemy, character, Nightfarer. And if you play with teammates, with other people, and your teammates get so aggro, you can run up to them and give them this buff. So if they get hit, they will reduce incoming damage once by 90% and help them out. It's super helpful. And guys, please, if you see this animation, please run back or run near the person who is using this. Please, buff yourself with free 10% damage and damage reduction. Please. This perfume cloud lingers a little bit, so even like if the person stays here at the training dummy and you're here and you see this cloud here, please, you can run back into this cloud and buff yourself, run out and have some more damage and enjoy. Please, please don't just run away if you see someone using this. If you're on the run and someone uses this and you see the cloud, run back and run back in to get the buff. It is super, super strong. Stack them up for the final boss and you will have a much easier time. Just for 8k runes, it's so easy. It's so easy to get at least 2 of them. And they are super, 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 super strong. So much value, especially in multiplayer. In single player, the value is a little bit lower. However, I will still use this every single expedition. Because of this, I will look every time for merchants and buy these through if the merchant has this. It's super helpful. Please start to use this. Please, please, it's so freaking strong. If you want to optimize your gameplay, if you just want to have some fun and don't care how good you are, that's completely fine with me. Have some fun, please, have some fun. But if you want to improve, if you want to get better, if you want to optimize your damage, your gameplay, please, please start this. Start using this. Start to buy this. Okay, please. It's super strong. It's so easy to use and super strong. You do. No, it's not in this. Okay, normal Elden Ring. I believe it costs some FP, but not here. Okay. Okay. Next consumables are these flasks here. They are very, very useful. I would say I try to buy this every time because I'm a fan of strong defenses. I'm a noob myself. However, I try to improve, and sooner or later I will be pretty good, I swear. However, this will increase all damage negation, even magic, fire, lightning, and so on. This is very helpful. However, every other thingy here, like additional restoring HP, boost max HP, steadily restores HP for a time. They are pretty helpful. These are pretty conditional, RNG dependent. These can be bought from merchants as well or in rare treasure chests. However, if you don't have any fire damage, you shouldn't use this, right? The other ones are pretty self-explanatory. If you played normal Elden Ring, you probably know about these. These can help you out by quite a bunch. They are pretty helpful. Yeah, but they do cost at the final vending machine before the final boss. They do cost 25k runes, and they're a lot. Compare this to the aromatic perfume. There are 2 of them only cost 8k, boost your damage by 10%, it does stack with other damage boosting effects, and it can save you from getting one-shotted. It's top tier, best consumable in my opinion. Super, 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 super strong. So these are pretty helpful. If you have spare runes, you can buy these at the final vending machine. The merchants throughout the expeditions can sell them as well, and they will be cheaper. So always check the consumables, and if you have the right element, these are pretty strong buffs as well. And other thingies can be pretty helpful as well. Throwing pods, yeah. The freezing pods, in my opinion, And the blood pots are extremely strong. Everyone knows status effect, especially frostbite and blood loss is pretty strong. However, rot pot and poison pot are pretty useful as well. If I see them, I most likely pick them up for some extra damage. However, I don't pick up sleep pots, shit pots, poison pots, volcano pots, rancor pots, and the other ones I actually don't know what they do. Humans and beasts, yeah. You can do funny stuff with it, but it costs more time, and time intensive stuff is not good in Elden Ring NIGHTREIGN. If you want to improve, try to speedrun everything, speedrun the fight, the boss, speedrun your movement. If you traverse through the map, this will be much better than spending time to lure some enemies for some reason. Volcano pot does a little bit of damage, and poison effect. To be honest, even in multiplayer where bosses have much more life, midfield bosses, end game field bosses, early game bosses will die way too much in order to get some value out of the poison. Rot is a little bit stronger and can be helpful in my opinion, but poison pots, whatever, they're not as great. Against Night Lords, a little bit better because you will need some time to defeat them, and most likely you will get the full value out of a poison or rot effect. So the value against Night Lords are a little bit higher, but still, since other consumables like these, Exalted Flesh, some bowlers, and especially uplifting aromatic perfume is extremely, it's so much better. Picking up freezing pots and these swarm pots can be pretty helpful. Status effects are pretty strong, especially the freezing pot in my opinion, since frostbite, an enemy who suffers from frostbite will suffer more damage, so it's a damage improvement and you deal a good amount of damage with the status. It's very helpful. The sleeping pot is very RNG dependent. There are enemies who are very weak against sleep. These are rune bearers. Basically every beast enemy is very weak against sleep, and against rune bearers, these giants, dragons, or other enemies, the sleep pods can be pretty helpful. However, you don't know that you're gonna fight a rune bearer, a giant or whatever, so it's extremely RNG dependent. If you find one and you have space left in your inventory, you can pick them up to prepare yourself. However, if you don't fight a beast enemy, you can throw them away later on to make space for better consumables, exalted flesh, uplifting aromatic perfume, and so on. The other ones are straight up pretty bad in my opinion. These elemental ones can be helpful, especially early on. It's a short little burst damage against the early bosses, can be pretty helpful. However, the holy water pot against Deathrite birds are extremely helpful. Deathrite birds are extremely weak against holy damage, and this is pure holy damage. Fighting a Deathrite bird with pure holy damage is super easy and pretty helpful. So if you have inventory space left, you can pick them up to prepare yourself, and if you don't fight a boss who is weak to these elements, you can throw them away or just use them. Sometimes the boss is running away, or sometimes you don't want to be close at a boss, throw them for a little bit extra damage. They are helpful, but you know, not as troublesome if you ignore them. I will not loss about you if you ignore them, other than the exalted flesh and the aromatic perfume. If you want to improve yourself, if you just want to have fun and don't care about your skill, please enjoy the game. Everything is fine. These darts and throwing knives are helpful early on. Some of them will inflict status, this will inflict bleed, blood loss, this will inflict poison build-up. The crystal darts are very useful against these stone guardian thingies, these cats, stone statue thingies. They will malfunction if you throw crystal darts at them. However, since you don't know that you're gonna fight against them, it's pretty RNG dependent. So I would say these throwing daggers and knives and darts doesn't have as much value. However, an executor or whatever this samurai guy has a good arcane stat, and this blood loss effect can be helpful to inflict blood loss on an enemy at range. Sometimes you can't approach a boss or don't want to approach a boss, and this can be a little bit helpful, but the value is low. Like the other consumables, I will leave them on the ground because I always pick up exalted flesh, uplifting aromatic, and maybe I have some upgrade materials, some smithing stones, and my inventory is already full, so I don't bother to pick them up. Warming stones. In normal Elden Ring, I would say they're insanely good in my opinion. They cost a little bit of FP in normal Elden Ring. Let me check if they cost FP here as well. I'm so stupid, I'm so sorry. I need to be in combat, I believe. No, they don't cost FP, other than in normal Elden Ring. In normal Elden Ring, it is super strong in my opinion. If you're low on flask charges, you can heal yourself. It's pretty useful because in Elden Ring, you don't need to hurry up. However, in NIGHTREIGN, it's more beneficial to speedrun the game in order to snowball, to get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger, whatever. So sitting there, chilling, and waiting for the life recovery is not good, and you shouldn't do this throughout the expedition. However, if you fight a boss and you have this, and you get some ship damage, I got some damage but not as much, using a flask would be not useful here, right? So I'm gonna throw it down, I'm gonna fight a little bit, I'm gonna fight and enjoy some heal over time. This can be pretty helpful and useful. Yeah, but against mobile bosses, it's not that great because they will move around the arena all the freaking time. Annoying, I know. Yeah. But they can be useful, but their value is not as great. Sometimes if I have space, I will pick them up, because having some resources to make your life easier throughout an expedition is pretty helpful. However, sooner or later I will delete them or just use them in order to make space for the good ones. Okay. Let's check for other ones. So other perfumes, in my opinion, I played around a little bit and I hate them. I really hate them. This one here can be pretty useful. It will damage yourself a little bit. However, this damage buff is pretty strong. Oh my god, it's huge. Oh, I need to use them more. Ooh, okay. They are pretty strong. you will increase the incoming damage by a little bit. You can see under my stamina bar there are the effects right now, and I believe I can, yep, here improve attack power, impaired damage negation. Impaired? I never read. Okay, whatever. You does increase your maximum stamina as well, so it's actually helpful, but improved attack power is pretty huge, and this buff kinda lasts pretty long, I would say. Let's be in combat. Use this. Why don't great attack but also damage received? Oh, okay, so it won't damage yourself. I used this once and I can swear I got damage because of it. So it was something else, I guess. This is extremely useful, risky, but it scales with your skill. So if you're a very good player, the value of this consumable is insanely strong. This buff is huge. I believe it is 30% almost, and this duration is pretty long. It's super strong. And like characters like Iron Eye and Duchess have an easier time with dodging enemy attacks, so you may want to risk and use this. Yep, it is super strong. So if I buff myself with Exalted Flesh, with this 20%, and this is 10%, I have an attack of 76, which should be around 30% damage. And if I use this, oof, it is 30%. I would say around 30% more damage. Wow, this is insanely strong. However, a little bit risky, since you get more damage. It lowers your damage negation. However, in combination, does it stack with other? Oh my god, it stacks with this. Oh my god, does it stack? No, it doesn't stack with Exalted Flesh, I believe. No, it does not stack with Exalted Flesh. However, it does stack with the aromatic effect. Oh my god, okay. So you can negate some damage with a bubble once at least and enjoy a huge amount of damage. 40% just because of consumables? This is strong. This is strong. I recommend using this. Oh my god, this is pretty good. Pretty good. Okay, let's check other consumables, other perfumes. Yeah. I used this once. It doesn't do really good damage. It lowers enemy attack. So, yeah. It has a useful usage, but it scales down with your skill. If you're a good player, this won't have much value at all. If you have troubles dodging enemy attacks, the value rises and can be helpful. If you want to increase your damage negation, you can use this, but it slows you down by quite a bunch. I don't like this, to be honest, and the value is not that great if you want to improve yourself. But still can be useful. If you have inventory space left and you find this, you can use this. I wouldn't buy this because this is much stronger. Use this. Okay. So before I want to talk about these, I want to talk about the greases. The greases will get you improve your damage. You will get a flat elemental affinity damage bonus, which is pretty strong early on. The value for greases, especially with level 1, is super strong. And Exalted Flesh, for example, does improve my damage by 20%. So I go up from 58 to 69. It's a damage upgrade of 11 with level 1 and without any other damaging boosts boss. Okay. However, if we use a grease, we will get more damage. We're gonna use a grease, and now we enjoy an attack buff of around 20 flat affinity damage. I have a relic right now with improved attack, fire attack, so with magic it will be a little bit low. So 21 flat damage is better than Exalted Flesh in early game. So if you want to improve your damage and therefore maybe snowball your game, start using greases. I don't think you should equip relics with starting greases. That can be helpful, but the value will decrease with more level ups, since with more level ups, your value of Exalted Flesh and Aromatic Perfume and the other strong one will increase by a lot. So this will have lower value. However, it does work with Exalted Flesh and stuff, and therefore is still a good damage buff. In Elden Ring NIGHTREIGN, the damage you can do is pretty low, and improving your damage is very nice. It has a lot of value because of the snowball effect. Faster boss kills, more runes, more power, even faster boss kills, and you can improve your run like this. Super strong. And damage buffs with consumables are super strong and has the most value in my opinion. You should really use greases, Exalted Flesh and other means of damage increasing stuff all the freaking time. Well, the shield grease, I never use shields. I like the Guardian, but I'm so bad with the Guardian, and in my opinion the Guardian is a little bit flawed. He could use some buffs. With the Guardian, the shield grease can be good, very good in my opinion. I never used this. I never use Guardian. If you play Guardian and want to increase the amount of attacks you want to block, the shield grease can help you by a lot. Okay, the last consumables. Raise Calling Bell is S tier, but only for some characters. Let me see. Okay, it does not have any scaling, so actually you can use this with every character, right? Maybe test this with Wilder. I never used this with Wilder because my other means of doing damage are stronger. But look at this with level 1, it's extremely strong. So level 1. The FP cost is very low as well, so even with Wilder I'm able to spam this, and look at this. The damage with level 1 is insane. It is insane. So this spell is super strong if you can find it early on. Like if I do damage with my normal attacks, I mean, look at this. The damage is so much lower than the freaking bells. And I want to show something. Like, I like to use the spell with Revenant. In my opinion, I don't have as much experience with Revenant, so don't quote me on that. But I'm using this relic because of the race calling bell in position at start of expedition. So I always will start an expedition with race calling bell. And this is a super strong combination, since you can summon Frederick, for example. He will tank some enemies, and now you can sit back and enjoy super strong damage. Revenant has okay FP at the start with level 1, so you can do huge amount of damage with this. Right. You can increase this with, I believe, Exalted Flesh and other stuff as well. Let's test it, okay? I actually didn't test it before. I should have done this. I'm so sorry. So we do it live. We use this. I'm sorry. Grab some here. We will use Flash. We will use this. And let's see if we do more damage. We should. We don't. Okay. I learned something new. So the value on this bell is super strong early on, but the value decreases with more level ups, since even with level 15, this bell will do the same amount of damage. So early on it is super strong. Even in multiplayer, last time I had teammates who didn't want to listen to my pings. It's not bad. I don't need to be the leader every time, and I don't want to be leader. This is stressful. I don't want to do this every time. So, but other people, one ran to the church across the map, one wants to do the castle boss, and I was in the middle. I was like, oh, okay. So I guess I do my own thing. I did some medium field bosses and game field bosses on my own, just with the bell and my summoning. It is a strong combination, especially early on, and can be used for every character, since it has no scaling, no means of increasing. You can use this even with Wilder and other characters. As you could see, the bell was pretty strong even with Wilder. So with level 1 to attack, let's see what our ultimate can do with the fire effect. So strong, right? The ultimate is strong. I love it. But compare this with the bell. Does require FP, Wilder's FP bar is short, but look at this, we already did damage worth of our ultimate without spending our ultimate. It is pretty strong. So if you want to have a very strong and fast early game in order to snowball your game, you can use a relic with a starting bell. It can be pretty useful. It's a pretty powerful consumable for early game and mid game. In late game the value is not as good anymore. The other effects here. I never found this. I believe you can buy this with merchants. I don't have experience with it. I will do another video if I found out some tips with it. This can be pretty strong, yeah. I believe there are maybe upgrades to the race calling thing. It's called Prowling Race. Race at chest down foes. It's basically the same thing but a little bit stronger, I guess. So if you find this from merchants or drops from bosses and you like the bell, you will probably like these two as well. I never use this, I almost always play Wilder, and I love my great swords, right? So they can be useful. I will play with this some more, and if I found out some cool strategies and tips with it, I will let you know. However, the Ancestral Infant's Hand is so RNG dependent. I used this before and I made some good experience with it. However, in my opinion, this is very RNG dependent, because what it will do, you will cast some fire on the ground, right? It will stay there for a little bit and still hit your enemy, right? It can be pretty strong if you do it like this. Throw it on the ground. Now you can hit the enemy and still do good amount of damage. However, it is very bad against bosses who are very mobile, but very strong against bosses who are more or less stationary, like the magma worm. I know he has an attack where he runs off a lot. It's annoying, but hopefully he doesn't spam this. If you're unlucky and he runs all the time, it's stupid, I know. But most of the time he's pretty not mobile, and therefore you can make good use out of this fire thingy. But in my opinion, most of the bosses are pretty mobile, and because it has a lingering cloud thingy, it goes for quite some times, and it can be pretty useful against big bosses who don't want to move a bunch. But it's pretty RNG dependent. Sometimes you don't know if you fight a boss who is stationary, right? So this is soon the next upcoming hard mode boss will be the Scorpion and the Moth. The Scorpion is not really mobile if you get the aggro and fight near the Scorpion. So this item may be pretty useful against the Scorpion. Right, you can use this, you can enjoy some damage over time and still attack and use some spells in order to increase your DP as quite a bit. Like do this and do this. That will be a pretty good damage DPS increase if you fight a big boss which isn't mobile at all. So not as great in my opinion, but can work. Yeah, this rounds up my guide for consumables. I'm sorry for the last few consumables. I never used them. I need more experience with it. Every other consumable is used. I used every other consumable already, so I know about them and their value. I will need to get some practice with it. I will let you know if they are pretty strong. Yeah, I hope it helped you a little bit, and please start using consumables on regular basis. They just will increase your damage output or damage mitigation, right? They are very useful. Please buy aromatic uplifting aromatic perfume for the whole team. Use them against the Night Lord. Improve yourself, improve your team, and enjoy. It's time for my last cringy sentence. When do we fight? I love being cringe.